All right, so I tried everything, and then finally I got my pillow. And guess what? I was able to help cure a big part of my insomnia. I fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and they work for me. And if you want the best night's sleep, if you're tired of staring at the ceiling or watching some old rerun, well, just go to mypillow.com. Mike Lindell has created a new Sean Hannity Square, and it's right there on that square. Every day, amazing offers that save you money. For example, you can buy one pillow, get another one free if you go to the Sean Hannity Square at mypillow.com right now and use the promo code Sean7. Now, remember, all My Pillow products, 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. And don't forget, if you pre-order a copy of Mike Lindell's new book, your entire shipping will be free. Just go to mypillow.com, click on the Sean Hannity Square. Right now, buy one pillow, get another one free. Promo code Sean7 at mypillow.com. All right, glad you're with us. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. We've got John Solomon. We got Rand Paul, who says he will expose the name of the whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower guy I look at as a leaker. Bill O'Reilly weighs in on the madness in the swamp, the sewer. We have some interesting news, good news, some mysterious news. We have Morning Consult. A substantial majority of Americans do, in fact, believe that Donald Trump will be reelected. 56%, 85% of Republicans, 51% of independents, 35% of Democrats. Yeah, that's not good for them. Michael Horowitz, little quiet, dodged a question today. Now, supposedly, we're going to get this FISA report on FISA abuse before Thanksgiving. That's the last I've been told. Don't kill the messenger if it doesn't happen. And anyway, he was confronted by reporters yesterday, wanted to know when the report on FISA abuse would finally be released. Washington Times said he dodged reporters' questions about the impending release of his highly anticipated report. I can't answer that, he said, in response to a question about when the public will get the first glimpse at this report. It's been going on forever. He later declined to answer another reporter. I don't even think they're reporters. They're everyone in the mob is corrupt. They're just, they have all lost it. They're all activists. They're all extensions of the Democratic Party. They're all suffering this rage, hate, psychotic syndrome of theirs. And he was pressed about the release at the Justice Department to discuss the department's new task force to crack down on rigged bids for government contracts. And in a letter last week to House and Senate leaders, Horowitz said the report is nearly done, would be released with few redactions. He described the report as lengthy. After we received the final classification markings from the department, meaning of Justice and FBI, we will then proceed with our usual process for preparing the final report, including, but, that should have all been happening by now. I think that, what are we now, 364 today or 363, Linda? I didn't hear the great Scott Shannon. All right, it's 363 days away. So it's a year away. We'll know 1 year from today. We will know that Donald Trump was hopefully reelected president of the United States. Can't say for certain. I'm going to tell you something. Don't ever take any election for granted. And I'm going to tell you the media analysis of last night was dead on wrong. Oh, my gosh, the Republican governor of Kentucky lost. Matt Bevin, and I don't really know all the reasons why, but I've been looking at the internal polling for a number of weeks now. He was down by double digits almost. This guy was losing this race. In fact, it ended up being close. Is pretty good. But, there's other factors you got to look at. I mean, you got Republicans in Kentucky electing the state's first black attorney general. And anybody who saw Daniel Cameron speak at the president's rally on Monday knows this guy. He's amazing. He's got a great, great political future from what I can see. Don't know him yet, but I'd like to get to know him. I still believe in, what's his name? John James. What's his name in Michigan? John James. Yeah, I think he's a rock star. Future Republican leader, for sure. Born leader. I'd like to see him do well. We do have stars emerging. It just takes a long time to, it's kind of like one of those, it takes decades to really get noticed. Anyway, this guy Cameron is a relative newcomer to politics. He defeated a Democrat in that case. He won 57-42, actually 58-42. I mean, it was an amazing night for others down ballot. Competitive governor's race in Mississippi, pretty easy win for the Republican there. We all know Northern Virginia has been a dumping ground for all the swamp creatures. I just don't take anything for granted. Now, you got to remember one thing is, as we now go into this final push, it is going to be a war a day. It's going to be intense. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. There's going to be good days. There's going to be tough days. There's going to be, it's funny. The Democrats, God only knows what Trump will do to maintain power. He's going to go out and campaign his ass off and run on his record. And the Democrats have no record. And their only message is, please hate Trump as much as we do. And I don't think that's a winning message. And I don't care who you look at on the Democratic side, and Biden's out there attacking Elizabeth Warren, accusing her of being condescending and having my way or the highway attitude, he said. Some call it the my way or the highway approach to politics. But it's worse than that, he said. It's condescending to millions of Democrats who have a different view. It's representative of an elitism that working and middle class people do not share. We know best. You know nothing. If you were only as smart as I am, you would agree with me. And this is no way to get anything done. And Biden reacting to Warren's comments when she complained Democrats are not going to win by repeating Republican talking points. So if Biden doesn't like that, I'm just not sure where he's going. From my perspective, I'm like, good, let them all go out there and kill each other. We have support for this impeachment madness, is now dropping precipitously. I'm seeing other polls that nobody else is seeing, and it's now beginning the process of blowing up on the Democrats, just like the Russia hoax, just like the Russia lie. I mean, look, I'm in the middle of all of this. It's so funny that we tell everybody what we do for a living. I am a talk show host on radio and television. What is a talk show host? Oh, we're kind of like a whole newspaper. If you want to know the truth, I don't claim to be a journalist, but journalism is part of my job description. That's a part of it. And, all these people that say they're journalists, they're not journalists. They're an extension of all things radical, extreme, socialist, rage, hate, psychosis against Trump. These people are not journalists. They missed the biggest corruption, abuse of power, scandal story in our career. Now they're missing the latest one. I'm telling you, if you want to know how corrupt the mob and the media is, all you have to do is replace the name Joe Biden, vice president, and say Donald J. Trump, vice president of the United States of America, leveraging $1 billion tax dollars in the biggest quid pro quo Joe. If you want the billion, fire the prosecutor that, even the New York Times warned me is investigating my own son. No, he was a corrupt prosecutor. That's not why he did it. No vice president's going to demand a Ukrainian prosecutor be fired. But he was told repeatedly that prosecutor was investigating his son. You got 6 hours. You fire him, you get $1 billion. You don't fire him, you don't get $1 billion. And then they act like they're all worked up over a quid pro quo. That's quid pro quo Joe. I'm going to run through the laws in this hour again because nobody else in the mob and the media is going to do it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. All the crap I'm listening to about me, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because it's just a bunch. It's a crock. They're lies. The lady, the Obama ambassador, Ukrainian ambassador holdover says that, she was told Mike Pompeo was going to talk to Sean Hannity. About what? For all the things he's been saying on the show. Okay, I can't even pronounce the woman's name if you want to know the truth. I don't know anything about this woman. And Mike Pompeo never called me. Nobody in the State Department ever called me, but we went back and looked and we could find Joe DeGeneva said, she may have to answer some questions about this. I'm like, okay, that wasn't what I cared about. The great one mentioned it in the same pretty much respects. There was one story I asked Solomon, is that true that they were monitoring our social media and all that stuff? That's it. Never talked about her again. I've never spoken to anybody from Ukraine that I know is from Ukraine. I do know my staff was trying to get an interview with the Shokin guy who was interviewed by ABC, the Washington Post, that got fired by Biden's quid pro quo. But I didn't make the call. I never talked to anybody there, not once. It's so ridiculous. And then, foreign policy is being run by Hannity. I mean, good grief. Mike Pompeo does not need Sean Hannity. Let's be blunt. And I love to keep people, just let them think. You want to know why the media is corrupt? Because of Vice President Donald J. Trump leveraged $1 billion taxpayer dollars. Fire the prosecutor, you get $1 billion. Don't fire him, you don't get $1 billion. And then we find out that Donald J. Trump, vice president, was told that his son, Don Jr., was being paid millions and is now under investigation. Even the New York Times tipped him off. Does anybody really doubt the real reason why that the vice president, and he brags about it, son of a bee, they fired him. Sure, they wanted $1 billion. Who wouldn't fire him? And Hunter Biden, I mean, the dumbest 49-year-old kid ever interviewed. He's not a kid. Have you ever known anything about Ukraine? Any experience? No. Gas? No. Oil? No. Energy? No. Why do you think they paid you millions? I don't know. Maybe because your dad's the second highest elected official in America. That's it. Yeah, I think that's the one. It's unbelievable. And the one, interestingly, and then I can't believe there's no laws against that, but there should be. But there are laws that we have discovered. If we had equal justice under the law and application of our laws, the attorney general would have to look at this brag of Joe Biden and then look at 15 U.S. Code 78. It is illegal for a U.S. person to coerce or influence through bribery or extortion a foreign nation into taking an action. Oh, $1 billion. Fire that guy. $1 billion. Beep, 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 beep. That might financially benefit that person, his family, or business. Oh, I want my son to keep getting paid. I wouldn't want to be Joe Biden and having that over my head. 18 U.S.C. 201C. Whoever gives, offers, or promises anything of value to a public official to influence an official act is guilty of bribery. $1 billion to a public official, Ukraine, to influence an action. Fire Shokin, the prosecutor investigating his kid. 18 U.S.C. 201B. Giving, offering, promising anything of value, $1 billion, to a public official, Ukraine, in exchange for an official act. Fire him. 18 U.S.C. 1951. A threat to a foreign official in order to obtain official benefit affecting interstate foreign commerce would constitute extortion. Now, what has the media been saying? Oh, this is a conspiracy theory. There's nothing. You know what? There's no evidence. They keep repeating it like, we're dumb. No, there's no evidence that anybody did anything wrong here. None whatsoever. Do you really believe the mob and the media would be acting that way if this was Don Jr. and Vice President Donald J. Trump? Because if you believe that, then you got to believe in the tooth fairy as well. That's how sick it is. That's how corrupt the mob and the media is. They are corrupt. They are compromised. They are agenda driven. They are liars. They are propagandists. They misinform. All they know is rage, hate, psychosis against Donald Trump and the rest of us smelly Walmart shopping Trump voters, irredeemable deplorables, and, people that believe in God. Oh, wow, we're horrible people. We believe in God, the Second Amendment, the Bible, religion. Guilty. I'm guilty. I like Costco. I like Target. I like Walmart. Guilty. Unbelievable. This is how sick it is. This is what's at stake in 363 days. Can you believe that they just make excuses? They're living in some alter universe. They're not even, it's like their bodies have been taken over by invasion of the body snatchers.
What's up, everyone? I'm Will Fulton, senior writer and producer for Thrillist, with some amazing podcast news. We just launched our very first podcast, Thrillist Best and the Rest. Every week, you can hear me and my amazingly talented colleagues talk about the best of the best in food, drink, travel, and entertainment, like what's the best city to bar hop in? What's the best thing to order at Taco Bell? What's the best Pixar movie? Listen to Thrillist Best and the Rest to get an inside look at how we make our lists, rank our ranks, and figure out what's the best of the best in the things that really matter. Consider this your escape from the cold, cold world. Tune in on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
So we have Rand Paul of Kentucky. He's saying he might just release the name of the whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower. As Greg Jarrett pointed out, the statute does not protect anonymity, period. It does protect against reprisal and repercussions of any kind, which is fair, but I'm not sure how does your person didn't know anything on their own. Then you're looking at the background of the person, deep connections to Schiff's office, apparently, and Biden. Wonder what his relationship with Brennan is like. That I'd like to know. John Solomon's reporting is Burisma bombshell is now getting some traction. Wall Street Journal picked up on it today. A consulting firm hired by Burisma Group mentioned that former U.S. Vice President Joey Biden. Now, remember, I want Schiff subpoenaed and put under oath. We got to find out the nature of the relationship with the non-whistleblower. And the whistleblower needs to be put under oath. Got to find out the relationship with the compromised, fact witness, corrupt, coward, congenital liar, Adam Schiff, judge, jury, executioner, the guy who makes all the decisions, no fairness. Then we should put Hunter and Joe Biden under oath, because that looks like a quid pro quo Joe to me. Anyway, they point out that this consulting firm hired by this Burisma Group paying Hunter Biden for no experience, they leveraged that money they're paying Hunter Biden to get a meeting with the State Department. According to these documents that Solomon found, email exchanges between State Department staff members made public this week show the consulting firm, Washington-based Blue Star Strategies, they actually used Hunter Biden's name. Oh, no, we're requesting a State Department meeting and, we have 2 Americans and Hunter's on our board. Oh, so that's why they were paying him for no experience. I think I figured it out.
How do our food stories change during wartime?
John E. Bistrica, Private First Class.
My name is Harold B. Long.
From World War II?
December 7th, 1941.
My name is Lawson Ichiro Sakai. I'm an American of Japanese ancestry.
Through today.
My name is Jason Skinner, Operation Iraqi Freedom Wire.
Our veterans share where they fought, who they fed, how they ate, and what they missed.
The food was good in the Army. I enjoyed it.
The military had powdered eggs, and I hated those powdered eggs.
Everybody has their freedoms because of what everybody else has given in the past.
Ask not what your country.
My name is Jacqueline Raposo, and I welcome you to Service, Stories of Hunger and War, a new iHeartRadio podcast debuting Veterans Day, November 11th, on the iHeartRadio app and everywhere you find your favorite podcasts.
We started feeding them basic Army food. We started feeding them. That's the first thing we did.
Join us.
All right, 25 till the top of the hour. See, the Federalist just gave out transcript. This guy, Taylor, wasn't even on the call. You know what's amazing is how the mob, they're putting so much credibility in what people thought of the transcript. That's all it is. And they hype it up. Doesn't matter what they thought of the transcript. I saw this Washington Examiner piece. I know our friend Kerry Pickett was working on this about Alexander Vindman. The headline is Vindman and the whistleblower are still working together on U.S. policy toward Ukraine. Isn't that nice? And, testified, works with the whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, who we can't give his name out or else we're committing the greatest sin in the history of mankind. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the Washington Examiner is reporting they've established that the whistleblower is a career CIA analyst who was detailed to the NSC in the White House during the Obama years and left during the first year of the Trump administration. That's called a holdover. Just like whoever that woman that was paranoid that I was out to get her and I know next to nothing about her. Mike Pompeo was going to talk to Hannity. No, Mike Pompeo doesn't need Sean Hannity. Never happened. We barely mentioned her. We went over every transcript. It's so funny. It wasn't so corrupt, but anyway. We get lied about a lot, don't we, Linda?
Oh, yeah.
Michael Cohen was never my attorney. Never my attorney. Never. He never were. I never, ever was he my attorney. His lawyer says it in court. Everyone will run out. Michael Cohen's other client is Hannity. No, he's not. I said at the time, I might have given him $1 saying, here, we have attorney-client privilege. Jeez, when we talked about then candidate Donald Trump, because I wanted privacy. Well, Hannity, you talked to Manafort. Yep. You talked to Lewandowski? Yep. You talked to Hope Hicks? Yep. You talked to everybody you can? Yep. Why? That's my job. I am a talk show host. I didn't finish this. What is a talk show host? We're like the whole newspaper. Yeah, well, Hannity, you've said you're not a journalist. No, I'm a talk show host, radio and TV. And as a talk show host, I can produce thousands of hours on radio and TV of just doing straight news, like a journalist. Straight news, no opinion, breaking news. We do it all the time. Then we can look at the work that we do as talk show host, investigative journalism. Yeah, I'd say we were out there on a limb vetting Obama when the mob and the media, when I first said journalism's dead, wouldn't do the job. And that would mean, we investigated Frank Marshall Davis, even the Choom Gang, and white folks' greed runs a world in need, and black liberation theology, and what is a community organizer, and who is Alinsky, and the Church of GD America, and America's chickens come home to roost the Sunday after 9/11, not God bless America, GD America. I had no idea he ever thought this way. I've only sat in his pews for 20 years. Yeah, we looked into the relationship with the unrepentant terrorists, Ayers and Dorn, Weather Underground. Oh, yeah, the Weather Underground involved in bombing New York City police headquarters, the Capitol, Pentagon, I think. Yeah, we did all that. Oh, so we do straight news on some days. We do investigative reporting, part of being a talk show host. We give opinion, and we're honest about it. I am a conservative. I'm a registered conservative. I also support the president's policies, as I have my 30-year career. Lower taxes, ending burdensome regulation, originalist, constitutionalist on the courts. Yep, I support all of that. Securing the border first. Said that pretty much all my career, too. We support, let's see. Yeah, I like the idea of freer and fairer trade deals. I love it. Great idea. And it's working out really well with Japan and Canada, Mexico, our Western European allies. I've also been a big advocate of energy independence. I've also been a strong, staunch supporter of Israel. Moving the capital to Jerusalem was the embassy to Jerusalem, its capital, was a good idea. Supported it for years. Recognizing the sovereignty of Israel with Golan. Supported that for years. If we're going to fight wars, you don't have rules of engagement. You knock the crap out of them and you win the war. Yep, I supported the president defeating the caliphate in Syria. Pounded them into submission. Beat them down to the ground. And yeah, I also support... as I've been saying, we got Baghdadi, and then we got his successor, and then we got his spokesperson, and then we got 3 other, animals that are terrorists that killed hundreds of thousands of people, that took pleasure in beheading people and videotaping, and took pleasure putting people in cages on fire, and took pleasure, taking Yazidi women and as sex slaves, and even children as sex slaves, and nearly wiping out Yazidi Christians in northern Iraq. Yeah, we were speaking about that when nobody in the media was speaking about that. So, yeah, these are all things that I've advocated my 31 years in radio and my 24th year now at the Fox News Channel. That is part of being a talk show host. You do straight news, you do investigative journalism, you do opinion, you also talk culture, sports, and anything else that comes up. Pretty much everything you'll get in a newspaper. We don't pigeonhole ourselves. So I'm a talk show host. So when I'm working the phones during election years and I'm on the road, I need sources. I needed sources for the Russia witch hunt, and I found them. And I got information. We broke open the story about the rigged investigation into Hillary. Yep, we did that. We went forward and we found illegal surveillance and illegal unmasking and illegal leaking of raw intelligence. We covered the Michael Flynn fiasco. We looked at Hillary Clinton's server issue. Yeah, that's obstruction of justice. I don't know anyone else that deletes subpoenaed emails and acid washes the hard drive with bleach pit and busts up devices with hammers and removes SIM cards and gets away with it. She did. Thankfully, by the way, just recently, Senator Grassley and Senator Johnson said they're going to be working on it. And yep, we looked into FISA abuse. And what do we find? Multiple occasions. Everybody was warned that Christopher Steele hated Trump, that it's not verified or corroborated, and Hillary paid for it. But they still used it as the bulk of information to obtain FISA warrants to spy. Well, first to deny Carter Page's constitutional rights, then to spy on the Trump campaign and transition and presidency. And then we looked into the foreign election interference. Oh, yeah, that would be outsourcing intelligence gathering to our allies. This will be the Durham report, not the Horowitz report. And did we do it to circumvent American law? And then we looked into how they tried to set up Sam Clovis, George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page abroad. That brought in the issue of Professor Misfit, you might remember. Identified as Russian intelligence by Mueller? Nope. That would be Western intelligence. And then we specifically kept pointing out countries, Great Britain and Italy and Australia. Yeah, for a reason. I was acting like it was random, but it wasn't random. And our research brought us there. And then we looked into the corrupt actions of Comey. I did something I wouldn't dare try and do in the Bush or Obama administrations. Nope. Yeah, I sent those guys in. I wouldn't get away with. And I sent him in after, of course, his deputy FBI director, McCabe, said, you don't need an attorney. Really? Yeah. And we also spent a lot of time and attention on Operation Crossfire Hurricane. You can't have a counterintelligence investigation without a president approving it. The president in that case would be Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah, we do all that. Now we're working on this Ukrainian story because you and I all know that if it was Vice President Donald J. Trump shaking down Ukraine with a quid pro quo, everyone talking about quid pro quo, we got one. We got an admission of one. You're not getting the $1 billion. I told them. I looked at my wife. You got 6 hours. You fire that guy, you'll get the $1 billion. You don't fire the guy, you don't get the $1 billion. Son of a bee, they fired him. Yeah, that's a quid pro quo. Why did Joe Biden want a Ukrainian prosecutor fired? Why? Oh, the New York Times and others told him they're investigating his son who got millions, who had no experience in Ukraine, oil, gas, or energy, just like the China deal. And Peter Schweitzer blew that open. And I'm not even mentioning all the people that we have created in our ensemble cast the last, 2.5+ years breaking this wide open. Now, John Solomon's latest discoveries. Well, why did Burisma Holdings? What do they get for the millions that they paid the no experience Hunter Biden? Well, these documents released by this Freedom of Information Act request by Solomon and the Southeastern Legal Foundation. Well, we now found out that, yeah, there's a lot of email exchanges with the State Department of Obama and a Washington-based Blue Star Strategies, and how they were representing the Ukrainian gas company, Burisma Holdings. And now we find out that they were using Hunter Biden's name in request for a State Department meeting, and then mentioning him again during the meeting is part of their effort to improve Burisma's image, and also part of an effort to get, their corruption pushed to the side. Oh, no, we have Americans in here. And Hunter appointed to the Burisma board with no experience, not even a little bit, zero experience, when the company and their owner faced allegations of corruption. And he still kept getting paid after his father leveraged $1 billion taxpayer dollars to get the guy fired. Served on the board when his father, the vice president, was overseeing the efforts in Ukraine to reduce corruption. This is where we are. But you know what? Nobody in the media mob cares. No. There's no evidence of anything wrong. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Republicans better get the Bidens under oath. They better get this compromised, corrupt, coward, congenital liar Schiff under oath. They need to get the whistleblower under oath. They need to get Hunter Biden, Joe Biden under oath. And while we're at it, let's get the transcripts of Joe Biden. Everyone's all for releasing transcripts. Let's release the transcripts of then Vice President Biden anytime he talked to anybody in Ukraine. And while we're at it, we might as well get any time he talked to China, because the same deal's there, because his son had no experience in China either. Before the Bank of China gave him $1 billion deal that became $1.5 billion 10 days after he went with his father to China. I mean, do they really think we're that stupid? You know what's going on here. And this is where the media is so corrupt. They are corrupt to the core. And I'm telling you, I never thought that the level of Pravda-like Soviet Union-style propaganda, misinformation, besmirchment, slander could exist in this country the way it does. It's repulsive to me. But that's the country we're now living in. And, the whistleblower is offering to answer written questions. No, that's not going to work. Mitch McConnell's right. The Senate's going to acquit. They'd acquit today. They should have quit. They shouldn't even hold the trial. Why? Because there's no due process at all. Hunter Biden, these developments that are ignored are despicable. They would never do this. Burisma cited Biden lobbying the government to reverse corruption charges. You got ex-Pompeo advisor rejecting the compromised, coward, congenital liar who's running this circus, Adam Schiff, in his testimony. And by the way, this woman who thinks that I talked about her a lot when I didn't, don't even know anything about her. Her transcript shows a quid pro quo. Javelin missiles for investigations didn't exist. And Volker denied any quid pro quo either. No leverage was implied. Ukraine said they felt no pressure. They felt no leverage whatsoever. Then you have the special envoy also saying on the issue of there was no quid pro quo. The media is gushing over Sonderland testimony. Volker's words painted a totally different picture, and none of it's relevant because it doesn't matter what these people think or how they interpret what happened in the phone call because we've got the transcript of the phone call. I mean, this is where they're taking the country. I'm telling you, it's all going to blow up in their faces, and it should, and it will. And, why? So they can get Donald Trump out of office? What would be the purpose of that? So they can institute the new Green Deal? So they can institute the $94 billion no more oil, gas, combustion engine, eventually no planes or cows, everything's free deal? So that then they can spend another $52 billion Warren taxpayer dollars on Medicare for all with no private insurance? Anybody see what's going on here? That's a disaster. By the way, senators, pay close attention. There's a poll out, NBC Wall Street Journal poll, and respondents did not feel one way or the other about Mitt Romney. 37% didn't have any feelings about Romney. 19% had a very negative reaction, 19% somewhat negative feeling. So it looks like Mitt Romney's national approval rating stands at a whopping 18%. I wonder why. He's got an axe to grind. It's sad. You watch all these guys over the years. I've seen it again and again. Al Gore loses the presidency, loses his mind. Hillary lost her mind after she lost. They all think they're going to win. Some of the contenders in 2015 and 16, they lost their minds, too. I'm telling you, they're not half the people they once were because they got beat. They thought they'd win. And you can go to Mitt Romney and John McCain. To me, they were never the same again. And the irony is, Mitt Romney is a nice guy. And he was nice. And they still called him a racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe. Wants dirty air, water, wants granny and grandpa to die and eat cat food and dog food. And then Paul Ryan will throw him over the cliff. They weren't nice to him. They weren't nice to McCain either. Oh, Hannity, you've been tough on McCain and Romney. Well, I went to bat and I went to war for these guys in spite of the crappy campaigns they both ran. We could have won in 2012. That was a winnable race. That was a winnable race. Donald Trump fights and he's winning. And I'm not sick of winning yet. I don't know about you. And I'm also scared to death of the insanity of this radical group of socialist extremists. $94 trillion new Green Deal, $52 trillion Medicare for all. God help save America. All right, John Solomon coming up, Bill O'Reilly coming up, Rand Paul coming up.
In a future ravaged by climate change and fossil fuel dependency, a special agent of the world's largest oil corporation descends into the depths to search for a missing executive aboard a sprawling deep-sea station. The Second Oil Age is a fiction podcast full of futuristic horror and intrigue. Each short-form episode drags the listener through a media-saturated world inspired by underwater action films from the 80s and 90s to present a cautionary tale of humanity's refusal to embrace the future. Listen to The Second Oil Age on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
All right, you heard the great Scott Shannon. 363 days till the defining, single most consequential election in our lifetime. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. There's going to be a lot of turbulence every day. Count on it every day. If there's no turbulence on a certain day, just like, oh, okay, this is like one day off. But it's going to be almost every day, if not every day. And it's going to be, the hysteria, the breathless reporting. Let me tell you, the left is you can see it. They're going to lose it by the end of this year. And by the end of this year, they're going to try to make Donald Trump into Lucifer, Satan. They will do everything they can do to take this man out, period, which is what we're watching unfold before our very eyes. John Solomon, who I've been quoting a lot of late, has been breaking a lot of news as it relates to this whole Hunter Biden Burisma holdings. We have on tape the vice president at the time in charge of Ukraine, Joe Biden. Why would a vice president of the United States in what is a brag about quid pro quo Joe? You got 6 hours. Fire him, and you'll get the $1 billion. If you don't fire him, you're not getting the $1 billion. Son of a bee, they fired him. Now, remember, he was tipped off at least once. We know that he knew more, that by the New York Times tipped him off, that in fact that his son Hunter was being investigated. Now, why would they investigate Hunter? Well, Hunter did the dumbest interview I think I've ever seen in my life on GMA. Do you know anything about Ukraine? No experience in Ukraine. Do you know anything about oil? No. Gas? No. Energy? No. Oh, why do you think you got paid millions of dollars to be on their board? I don't know. I guess I had as much experience as everybody else. None. Do you think maybe it has to do with the fact that your father is in charge of Ukraine, the second highest elected official, the vice president of the United States? Yeah, actually, probably. That's probably the real reason. Yeah. Then we can go to look at China, Romania, and everywhere else. Anyway, now the argument has been that this was not a quid pro quo. It is a quid pro quo. All the media can say it all they want. They can lie all they want. They can cover for the Bidens all they want. Joe Biden knew that his son was under investigation, and he leveraged $1 billion taxpayer dollars, said, if you don't fire the guy investigating my son, basically, you're not getting the $1 billion. Well, we now understand that this goes even further than that, because John Solomon, we now have this new document revealing the level of coordination between the Obama State Department, Joe Biden, and Hunter Biden's lucrative position at Burisma Holdings. Now, this Freedom of Information Act request that also with the Southeastern Legal Foundation and John Solomon show that the State Department officials, they were being lobbied. Whoopsie daisy. Who are they being lobbied by? People representing Ukraine. And what was the nature of the lobbying? Well, we now know that a consulting firm, Blue Star Strategies out of D.C., well, they were throwing around Hunter Biden's name on behalf of Ukraine, requesting the State Department not only for meetings, but to end the investigations against them. Anyway, John Solomon first published these documents, and these emails were subsequently made available to him, and others now are following up on it. He joins us now, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor, John Solomon. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sean. You did a good job capsulizing that. It's a pretty important development.
How is it the rest of the mob and the media, the ones that lied about Russia, collusion, impeachment, and the ones that are now trying, to impeach the president again, sure. How is it they don't see any wrongdoing in this whole Hunter Biden, Joe Biden using taxpayer money shakedown with tax? Why?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's funny. You see a lot of people quoted in their stories as suggesting it's wrong, and they gloss over it and then try to go to, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. I'll give you some great examples. The Washington Post is quoting from a recent interview in the impeachment proceedings in which a senior State Department official states flatly, I tried to warn Joe Biden staff in 2015. This Burisma matter was a conflict of interest. It was bad for the United States, bad for Ukraine, and Joe Biden staff didn't want to hear anything about it. And then they go on to say, oh, it's all a conspiracy theory. Well, that's not a conspiracy theory. Some guy, an expert in Ukraine, saw it for what it was. A State Department official working for Joe Biden saw it for what it was, a conflict of interest. Same thing, you see Shokin was interviewed by ABC News, by the Washington Post after he was interviewed by me. Shokin tells the same story in each venue. I was fired because Joe Biden was mad I wouldn't drop the investigation against his son's company. And then you go, their same publication, go, oh, it was a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a factually based story. And Joe Biden has a lot of questions to answer, and he's been allowed to skip answering them so far.
All right, let's go through this, and let's look. I think the Joe Biden issue stands alone, and the Hunter Biden issue stands alone. They obviously, but you have these documents that showed they really did want something for the money that they were paying Hunter Biden, didn't they? And they did use that name Hunter Biden to try to get the State Department to get the investigations ended, didn't they?
For sure. And it comes at a very critical juncture in the investigation. For all of us in America who follow Ukraine, you wouldn't have heard about this. You wouldn't know the significance of February 2016 unless you were Burisma, Hunter Biden, the company, because on that month, the start of that month, February 2nd, 2016, the Ukrainian prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, the one that Biden ultimately got fired, orders a raid on Hunter Biden's boss's home, the owner of Burisma Holdings, an oligarch by the name of Mykola Zlochevsky. And that raid signaled that after years of quiet, or after some months of quiet, that Ukrainian prosecutors were stepping up the investigation. They were getting closer. They were able to get a court order to seize Mr. Zlochevsky's possessions, a real sign that the noose was closing. What happens? 2 days later, Hunter Biden sends a private Twitter message to the number 2 official at the State Department, who, oh, by the way, just happens to be Joe Biden's closest advisor, one of his closest advisors, Tony Blinken, Deputy Secretary of State. 3 weeks later, Burisma's lobbyists, lawyers, legal representatives, whatever you want to call them, Blue Star Strategies, walks into the State Department seeking a meeting with the number 3 official, saying we need to end this talk of corruption in Ukraine about Burisma. We'd like to meet the number 3 official, and the reason you should do it is Hunter Biden is one of the Americans on the board. That's exactly the sort of name trading, the sort of insider baseball that these ethics rules that Joe Biden should have abided by were designed to prevent. You don't want this conflict of interest. You don't want the State Department thinking they got to do something for Burisma because Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, is on the board. That's why Joe Biden should have recused himself from this whole matter, which he failed to do.
He failed to do. Now, Greg Jarrett, our friend and our colleagues, identified very specific laws. And as I read it, I'll tell you, I think it's pretty damning for Joe Biden. And I don't think you need to be a lawyer to figure out 15 U.S.C. 78. It is illegal for a person to coerce or influence through bribery or extortion a foreign nation into taking action that might financially benefit the person, his family, or business. That doesn't sound good, does it? 18...
No, in this case, there's clearly a benefit to firing the prosecutor who was overseeing the Burisma investigation and who was planning, by his own admission, was planning to call Hunter Biden as a witness right around the time he got fired.
18 U.S.C. 201C. Whoever gives, offers, or promises anything of value to a public official to influence an official act is guilty of bribery. Does that sound good for Joe and Hunter?
I think that one's got to be explored, right? We need to know the circumstances. And I think one very important fact, normally USAID can't be withheld unless there's an interagency process that begins. One question for Joe Biden and the Obama administration, I can't find any record of it. Did anyone put this through the normal channels to make sure this was okay to use the aid this way? If not, it meant Joe Biden did it on his own and he had a personal reason to do so.
18 U.S.C. 201B, giving, offering, promising anything of value to a public official in exchange for any official act. Uh-oh. Right. That sounds like trouble. 18 U.S.C. 1951, a threat to a foreign official in order to obtain an official benefit affecting interstate foreign commerce would constitute extortion. Look, we can go over this all day long, but we have a double standard. You've read the transcripts. Right. I don't care what so-and-so and this so-and-so. Most of the so-and-sos, by the way, don't think anything was wrong with the president. I hear the president. Right. We knew Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election. We knew from a Ukrainian court decision. We knew from the reporting of Politico January 11, 2017. We knew because Ukrainian officials, John Solomon, weren't they willing to give us the evidence?
Yes, they were. In fact, they tried and were turned down. The U.S. attorney in New York wasn't interested in this overture, which, by the way, occurred way back in the summer and fall of 2018. More than a year ago, Ukrainian authorities tried to drop all this evidence on the U.S. Justice Department, and it fell on deaf ears at the end of the Jeff Sessions tenure.
All right. Now, let's go. Where do you think, is there going to be more Freedom of Information Act information on this?
Absolutely. Our lawsuit is proceeding. The great lawyers at Southeastern Legal Foundation, Todd and Kim, are working hard. We had a status conference today. We're moving ahead. We expect another production of documents just before Christmas. I think these documents will go beyond what we know was happening at the top of the State Department to then find out, what did the embassy in Kiev do? What did other State Department officials? Did anyone contact Joe Biden's office from the State Department now that his son's name was being invoked? And remember, there's another document that came out yesterday. We talked about it on the show yesterday, but I think it's so important. Joe Biden says, I didn't know anything about Hunter Biden. That's weird. The State Department thought he knew everything about Hunter Biden and Burisma because when they prepared their ambassador for her confirmation hearing in the summer of 2016, the Obama State Department prepared an answer for her. If you get asked about Hunter Biden, refer him to Joe Biden. Why would the State Department do that unless they knew Joe Biden knew what was going on? Joe Biden's story doesn't add up. We'll learn more about that as well.
Yeah, and we know the New York Times warned him that they were investigating his kid. It's falling apart. All right, let me ask you this. Change gears here.
Sure.
When are we getting the IG report? What are your sources telling you? I'm hearing what it's going to come out. The words I've got will shock the conscience. Yeah, I've heard this for a long time.
That's exactly a term I've heard. That's a very similar term. Here's what I'm hearing. And again, it's like waiting for Godot, so I don't want to keep teasing people. But remember, it was supposed to come out in May and June. Then you and I discovered that famous document, the Cadillac Steele document. That led to new investigation. It delayed the report until September, October. Michael, or the IG,
Horowitz
finished the report. Horowitz, he finished the report. He's kicked it over to the Justice Department. My understanding is the Justice Department asked the IG for a little more analysis. What regulations and laws do you think might be broken? Could you bear that out in the report so the American public could see that? That work is being wrapped up now, and I am hearing the most likely release date for the FISA report is going to be the week of November 18th, so about 2 weeks from now. But
I heard just before Thanksgiving. So that would be a week before, a week and a half before Thanksgiving.
That's right. You're in the right. That's what I'm hearing too. Now things could change, and it seems like the grand tease every time we talk about this. But we are getting closer to the release of a very explosive report. I am hearing that as early as next week, it is possible that the IG is going to release another report that we knew nothing about. It was flying below the radar. I'm going to talk about this on your show tonight, but I can give you a little tease. It appears the IG has finished an investigation into the FBI's management of human sources, what we would call informants, people like Christopher Steele. They found some widespread problems, particularly the FBI's failure to react when a red alert, a red flag is raised about the credibility of an informant, the failure to address that, maybe pull them out of rotation, inform the courts. Does that sound familiar with what we learned about Christopher Steele? All of those things at the State Department that Bruce Orr was warning about? It appears that this was a more systemic problem inside the Bureau, and that report could come out as early as next week. That could be explosive.
I want to hear more about this in a second. John Solomon, investigative reporter.
Theodore Roosevelt explored uncharted Amazon territory, paved the way for the Panama Canal, preserved millions of acres of treasured U.S. land, and won a Nobel Peace Prize. He also struggled with debilitating childhood asthma, endured several devastating family tragedies, and clashed with fellow politicians. I'm Erin McCarthy, editor-in-chief of Mental Floss and the host of History Versus, a new podcast that shares the inside stories behind some of history's ultimate fighters. Season 1 tackles Theodore Roosevelt, who went head-to-head with seemingly unbeatable foes like corruption, time, the rest of the world, and death itself. Listen and subscribe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, as we continue, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor John Solomon is with us. All right, so we're expecting maybe as early as next week a report that nobody expected from IG Horowitz. And then the 18th, you're thinking around there. What day of the week is that?
I think it's a Monday, as I recall.
Okay,
yeah,
then
so
that would be the IG.
Week. You know how these things are in Washington. They slide a day or two.
Will he say premeditated fraud on a FISA court for the purpose of spying on a president, denying one individual their constitutional liberties?
I don't know yet. I'm still reporting on it. What I do know, is my sources are telling me that it will paint a devastating picture of misconduct by the FBI in the pursuit of these 4 FISAs, and in providing inaccurate information about Steele specifically to the court. And there may be some new evidence about derogatory information about Christopher Steele that the FBI had all the way back in 2015. I'm going to report tonight that in a meeting a couple of weeks ago in an unclassified setting, U.S. officials told some members in their staff of Congress that in 2015, the Brits passed along, I believe to the FBI, certainly to the United States, some information about Christopher Steele that should have given pause, should have been included in his informant evaluation report, and it was not. If that comes out in the IG report, one of these next 2 IG reports, either the human source one or the FISA one, that's going to add to a picture of just how far the FBI was willing to go to use Christopher Steele despite the grave reservations about the credibility of his information.
All right, John Solomon will join us tonight. Hannity, 9 Eastern on the Fox News channel. We're loaded up. When we come back, Rand Paul wants to identify the non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, and Bill O'Reilly coming up straight ahead.
What's up, guys? This is Yeezy Bus, and I've got a brand new podcast about sneaker culture, Legit Check. I'm going to be highlighting some of the most talented people in fashion, music, and streetwear. This is the first and only podcast of its kind, and we're happy to be giving people what they've been waiting for. Don't miss these exclusive interviews. Listen to Legit Check on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
President Trump has great courage. He faces down the fake media every day. But Congress needs to step up and have equal courage to defend the president. Hunter Biden made $50,000 a month. That's the definition of corruption. We know he got it only because of his family connections. We also now know the name of the whistleblower. The whistleblower needs to come before Congress as a material witness because he worked for Joe Biden at the same time Hunter Biden was getting money from corrupt oligarchs. I say tonight to the media, do your job and print his name. And I say this to my fellow colleagues in Congress, to every Republican in Washington, step up and subpoena Hunter Biden and subpoena the whistleblower. And I say to my colleagues, if Shifty Schiff will not let Hunter Biden come, and if he will not bring the whistleblower forward, every Republican in Congress should take a walk and say, this is a farce.
All right, 24 now till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. Anyway, the great senator from the great state of Kentucky, our friend Rand Paul is with us. I love what you said about the whistleblower, non-whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower. But really, I want to know, I think the whistleblower needs to go under oath and answer what's the nature of the relationship with the compromised. We now know he's compromised and corrupt and coward and congenital liar for 3 years, Adam Schiff. I'd like to know, what was their contact? What advice was given? He's not a whistleblower.
Well, the thing is the Constitution's very clear. The Sixth Amendment in the Bill of Rights says you have the right to confront your accuser. And many people are misinterpreting the whistleblower statute to say, well, it's illegal to reveal his name. It actually isn't illegal to reveal his name. It's illegal for the investigator general to. It's not illegal for anybody else to reveal his name. And it is being discussed all over the internet. The mainstream media is refusing to bring it up because they don't want to ask ask any tough questions, because we need to ask, yes, what was his relationship with Schiff? But we also need to ask, was he aware of the conflict of interest between Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and this Ukrainian oligarch? He was working on the Ukrainian question. So he has there's a material nature to his testimony above and beyond him being the whistleblower. And others are arguing, well, we have the documents now. We don't need him. He just made us aware of the documents. No, he made an accusation by characterizing the documents. There are dozens and dozens of people who have listened to that phone call, and actually now the whole country has seen the transcript of the phone call. Well, half the people in the country think that the president did nothing wrong, and the other half do. How could that end up being an impeachable offense if people have different agreements on whether he did or did not do anything wrong in the phone call?
Well, you believe in the Constitution. President has a sworn constitutional duty to faithfully execute. The paragraph that talks about I need you to do me a favor. Well, we know a Ukrainian court decision. They identified that Ukraine, in fact, was involved in foreign election interference on behalf of Hillary Clinton in 2016. We know from the January 11, 2017 long article by Politico, that a DNC operative met at the Ukrainian embassy for the purpose of colluding with Ukraine to get dirt on Donald Trump and other people on his campaign team. And in fact, they say they were successful and that Ukraine was up to their eyeballs in all of that. So when I hear the president say, help us get to the bottom of it, I hear him faithfully executing the laws. And as it relates to Joe Biden, we've identified 4 separate crimes in his admission that, of his quid pro quo. You get the $1 billion if you fire the prosecutor in 6 hours. You don't get the $1 billion if you don't fire him.
The interesting thing about our rules with regard to foreign aid is it's actually in our laws that you cannot send foreign aid out the door unless you're able to ascertain that there's a lack of corruption in the country you're sending it to. So it's the obligation of the president to actually ascertain how corrupt is the country. Is there enough corruption that we shouldn't be sending them the money? That's actually in our law. But you're right about this. Everybody seems to be threatening their aid. Joe Biden threatened $1 billion worth of aid. President Obama actually withheld $300 billion worth of lethal aid because he didn't want to give them lethal aid. And then also you've got Menendez, who writes a letter to them saying, well, if you don't continue to investigate Trump-Russia collusion in the Mueller report, we may well threaten your aid. Murphy threatened the aid a month ago. So
Murphy did it. Menendez did it. Pat Leahy was on that letter, and Dick Durbin was on that letter.
Yeah, it seems like the only thing that we know for certain is everybody in Washington seems to be threatening Ukrainian aid, but you can't have different standard. You can't let Democrats do it for the last 10 years, threaten aid, and then accuse a Republican of doing it and saying, oh, we're going to impeach the Republican for doing exactly what Joe Biden did, what Menendez did, and what Murphy did.
Well, but I think the most important part, I know the president and those around him are saying, read the transcript. When you read the transcript, I hear a president of the United States saying that he wants to get to the bottom of what was clear election interference by Ukraine. And now let's get into and analyze the